Maya Atkinson never thought an email would change her life. As she tapped out a polite response to the woman who'd contacted her event planning business, little did she know that accepting this job would lead to far more than just another successful celebration in her portfolio. Miss Atkinson, my brother recommended your services for my engagement brunch. Would you be available to meet this week to discuss details? Best regards, Sophia Bennett. Maya smiled at the referral. Business had been steady since she'd left her corporate marketing job 2 years ago to start Memorable Moments, but word-of-mouth recommendations were still her lifeblood. After a quick check of her calendar, she replied with 3 potential meeting times and added a link to her portfolio. Within the hour, Sophia confirmed for the following afternoon at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Maya made a note to prepare her standard engagement event packet, grateful for the distraction from her otherwise uneventful Tuesday. The next day, Maya arrived at Percolate, her favorite independent coffee shop, 15 minutes early. She chose a corner table with comfortable chairs and enough space to spread out her materials. After ordering a cappuccino, she arranged her tablet, notebook, and several glossy photos of previous events she'd coordinated. At precisely 2 o'clock, a woman with sleek dark hair and a confident stride entered the shop. Maya recognized her immediately from her Instagram profile picture and waved her over. "Sophia, I'm Maya Atkinson. So nice to meet you." Sophia's smile was warm as they shook hands. "My brother absolutely insisted I talk to you. He said you're the best event planner in Portland." "That's very kind," Maya replied, curious about this brother who seemed to know her work. "I don't believe I caught his name in your email." "Oh, Connor Bennett," Sophia said, slipping into the seat across from Maya. "He's not very social media active, so you probably haven't connected with him online. But he's been to an event you planned, the Portland Art Museum fundraiser last spring." Maya nodded, recalling the elegant charity gala she'd coordinated. "That was a lovely evening. I'm glad he enjoyed it." He more than enjoyed it. He said it was the most seamless event he'd ever attended, and trust me, my brother has been to plenty of fancy gatherings. Maya took a sip of her cappuccino to hide her pleased smile. "Well, I'd love to create something equally special for your engagement brunch. Tell me about what you're envisioning." For the next hour, they discussed Sophia's preferences, from the garden venue she'd already secured to her desire for a sophisticated but relaxed atmosphere. She wanted something elegant that didn't feel stuffy, a celebration that would bring together 60 of their closest friends and family in 6 weeks' time. "My fiancé, Daniel, and I want something memorable but not over the top," Sophia explained. "And Connor's offered to help with the costs, which is amazing, but I don't want to take advantage." Maya made notes, already mentally sketching the event. "Brothers can be wonderful that way," she said with a smile. "I'm an only child, so I've always envied those sibling relationships." "Connor's the best," Sophia agreed. "Though I sometimes think he's too focused on taking care of everyone else. He needs someone in his life who can remind him to enjoy it a little more." She gave Maya a curious look. "Are you seeing anyone?" The abrupt question caught Maya off guard. "Oh, no. Not currently. My business keeps me pretty busy." She quickly steered the conversation back to safer territory. "Now, about the menu, are you thinking traditional brunch items or something more customized?" By the time they parted ways an hour later, Maya had a clear vision for the engagement brunch and a signed contract. Sophia had even paid the deposit on the spot, mentioning that her brother had insisted on covering the initial costs as part of his engagement gift. "I'll email you some venue photos tonight," Sophia promised as they walked out together. And I should warn you, Connor mentioned he wants to meet with you himself to discuss a few surprise elements for the brunch. He's very invested in making this special for me. Of course, Maya said. Just have him call my office number to set up a time. Great. He's actually in town this week. He splits his time between here and Seattle for work. I'll tell him to reach out soon. Maya drove back to her small office space in the Pearl District, thinking about the Bennett siblings. There was something nice about their obvious affection for one another. Her phone rang just as she was unlocking her office door, and she juggled her bag and coffee to answer it. Memorable moments. This is Maya Atkinson. Miss Atkinson, this is Connor Bennett. My sister Sophia gave me your number. I understand you're planning her engagement brunch. His voice was deep and confident, the kind that suggested he was used to being listened to. Maya set her things down and sat at her desk. Yes, Mr. Bennett. Your sister and I had a lovely meeting this afternoon. I understand you'd like to discuss some surprise elements for the event. I would. And please call me Connor. Are you free for dinner this evening? I'd like to go over a few ideas in person. Maya checked her calendar, empty as usual for a Wednesday night. I could meet you, yes. But we could also schedule something during business hours if that's more convenient. Tonight would be better for me. I have meetings all day tomorrow before heading back to Seattle. How about Riverside at 7? They have private tables where we can speak without being overheard. Sophia and her fiancé sometimes drop in there. The exclusive restaurant overlooking the Willamette River was known for its month-long waiting list. Riverside would be fine, she answered, trying to sound as if she dined there regularly. Excellent. I've made a reservation under my name. See you at 7, Miss Atkinson. Maya, please, she corrected him. Maya, he repeated, and she could hear a smile in his voice. Until tonight. After ending the call, Maya sat back in her chair. Something about Connor Bennett's voice had sent a little shiver up her spine, authoritative yet warm. She shook off the feeling and opened her laptop to research the venue for Sophia's brunch, trying not to think about what to wear to Riverside later. At 6:45, Maya handed her keys to the valet at Riverside. She'd chosen a simple black dress that could pass for either business attire or dinner wear, paired with her one splurge designer handbag. The maitre d' greeted her with practiced deference. Good evening. You have a reservation. I'm meeting Connor Bennett, she replied, and immediately noticed a shift in the man's demeanor. Of course, Miss Atkinson. Mr. Bennett is already seated. Please follow me. They weaved through the main dining room toward a secluded area with just 3 tables, each separated by elegant privacy screens. Connor Bennett stood as they approached, and Maya's first thought was that Sophia hadn't mentioned how attractive her brother was. Tall with broad shoulders beneath a perfectly tailored navy suit, he had the same dark hair as his sister, though his was shorter and slightly wavy. His eyes were a striking blue that complemented his tanned skin, and the smile he offered Maya showed perfect white teeth against his strong jawline. Maya, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for making time for this. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, his palm warm against hers. It's no problem, she replied, suddenly aware that her voice sounded a bit breathier than usual. After they were seated, and the waiter had taken their drink orders, a glass of Cabernet for her and neat scotch for him, Connor opened a leather portfolio. I want to make Sophia's engagement brunch truly special, he began. She's always been there for me, especially after our parents died. I'd like to add a few elements that she's not expecting. I'm sorry about your parents, Maya said softly. Connor nodded, a flicker of old grief crossing his face. Thank you. It was 10 years ago, car accident. Sophia was just finishing college and I'd started my first business. We became each other's support system. He cleared his throat. Anyway, she deserves a wonderful celebration, and I've heard you're the person who can make that happen. I'll certainly do my best. What did you have in mind? For the next hour, over exquisite seafood and wine that Connor insisted on ordering despite Maya's protests that they could stick to drinks, they discussed various surprise additions to the brunch. Connor wanted to fly in Sophia's favorite cousins from Chicago, arrange for a string quartet playing their family's favorite songs, and set up a photo display chronicling Sophia and Daniel's relationship. Budget doesn't seem to be a concern for you, Maya observed as their dessert plates were cleared. Connor's eyes crinkled when he smiled. I've been fortunate in my business ventures. Being able to do things like this for my sister is one of the rewards. What kind of business are you in? Maya asked, genuinely curious. Real estate development, primarily. I started with one apartment building renovation after college and built from there. He spoke without boasting, as if turning one property into what must be a sizable portfolio was something anyone might accomplish. That's impressive, she said. Is that what brings you to Seattle? Yes, I'm overseeing a new commercial project there, but Portland's home. His gaze was steady on her face. Sophia mentioned you left a corporate job to start your own business. That takes courage. Maya was surprised Sophia had discussed her. It was more desperation than courage. My old firm was asking for 80-hour weeks and still laying people off. I'd been planning events on the side for friends, and it just seemed like the right time to try going solo. And how's that working out? It has its challenges, but I love what I do now. She smiled. Every event is different, and helping people celebrate important moments is surprisingly rewarding. Connor nodded. I can imagine. Creating something meaningful out of an empty space, there's satisfaction in that. The way he said it made Maya wonder if he was talking about more than just event planning. Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment, something electric passed between them before the waiter approached to refill their water glasses. Connor glanced at his watch. I've kept you late, he said, though he didn't sound particularly apologetic. Would you be willing to visit the venue with me tomorrow? I'd like to see the space before finalizing some of these surprises. I thought you had meetings all day. His smile was slightly mischievous. I may have exaggerated my schedule a bit. I'm free after lunch. Maya should have been annoyed at the manipulation, but instead she found herself looking forward to seeing him again. I can meet you there at 2. Perfect. He signaled for the check, which arrived promptly. When Maya reached for her purse, Connor shook his head. This is a business expense for Sophia's event, please. She nodded, acquiescing. As they walked out together, the restaurant staff nodding deferentially to Connor, she noticed how he placed his hand lightly at the small of her back, not presumptuous, but protective. At the valet stand, Connor handed the attendant his ticket first, then Maya's, along with what looked like a substantial tip. When his car arrived, a sleek black Aston Martin, Maya raised an eyebrow. Real estate must be treating you well, she commented. He laughed, a rich sound that made her smile in response. It has its moments. Thank you for meeting tonight, Maya. I'll see you tomorrow at the venue. As she drove home in her sensible crossover SUV, Maya realized she hadn't thought about spreadsheets or vendor quotes once during dinner. Instead, she'd been completely engaged in conversation with a man who seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. It had been a long time since she'd experienced that kind of connection, and even longer since she'd felt the flutter of attraction that Connor Bennett had stirred in her. But he was a client, she reminded herself firmly. Or at least, his sister was. And Maya had a strict policy against mixing business with pleasure. No matter how blue his eyes were or how his smile made her stomach do little flips, Connor Bennett was off limits. The next day, Maya arrived at the garden venue 15 minutes before her scheduled meeting with Connor. The property was a hidden gem just outside the city, a restored Victorian home with extensive gardens that had been converted into an event space. Maya had worked here twice before and loved the versatility of the setting. She was walking the perimeter of the main garden, making notes about potential setups, when a voice behind her made her jump. "Started without me, I see." Maya turned to find Connor watching her with an amused expression. He looked different today, more relaxed in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. Somehow, the casual look suited him even better than the business attire. "Professional habit," she explained, holding up her tablet. "I like to get a feel for a space before deciding on layouts." "Don't let me interrupt your process," he said, falling into step beside her. "What are you thinking so far?" As they walked the grounds together, Maya shared her initial ideas, setting up the main brunch under a white tent in the rose garden, with cocktail tables scattered throughout the adjacent courtyard for mingling. The Victorian home's veranda would serve as a perfect backdrop for photos. "Sophia mentioned wanting something elegant but not stuffy," Maya explained. "I thought we could use natural elements, lots of greenery and simple flowers with touches of gold for sophistication. String lights overhead for when the celebration extends past morning." Connor listened attentively, occasionally asking thoughtful questions or making suggestions that showed he'd given this event considerable thought himself. "For the surprise elements," Maya continued, stopping at a secluded alcove surrounded by flowering shrubs, "we could set up the family photo display here. Guests will discover it as they wander the grounds." "I like that," Connor said, stepping into the space to assess it. "Private enough to be meaningful, not so hidden that people will miss it. And for the string quartet, there's a perfect spot near the fountain that has natural acoustics. They can play as guests arrive, then move to this area during the meal." She led him to a stone patio that overlooked the main garden. "You have a good eye for this," Connor commented, standing close enough that Maya could detect his cologne, something woodsy and subtle that suited him perfectly. "It's what I do," she replied with a smile, trying to ignore the warmth that spread through her at his proximity. "Now, about those cousins from Chicago, where were you planning to have them stay?" "I thought they could stay with me. I have plenty of room." "Oh, where do you live?" "I have a place in West Hills. Too big for one person, honestly, but I fell in love with the view." The casual mention of what must be a multi-million-dollar home reminded Meyer of the wealth gap between them. The West Hills neighborhood housed some of Portland's most expensive real estate, with sweeping views of the city and mountains beyond. "Well, that solves that problem," she said briskly, making a note on her tablet. "And when will they arrive?" "We'll need to make sure they're incorporated into the event smoothly without giving away the surprise too early." They continued discussing logistics as they completed their tour of the venue. Maya was impressed by Connor's attention to detail and the way he seemed to anticipate his sister's preferences. It was clear the siblings shared a close bond. "I should get back to the city for a conference call," Connor said eventually, checking his watch. "But I've enjoyed seeing this place through your eyes. You've given me confidence that Sophia's day will be perfect." "That's the goal," Maya replied. "I'll draft a revised proposal with the additions we've discussed and send it over tomorrow." "Actually," Connor said, hesitating briefly, "I've been thinking. There's a small complication I haven't mentioned yet." Maya waited, wondering what new element he wanted to add to the already elaborate plans. "The weekend after Sophia's brunch, I'm hosting an engagement party of my own." "Oh." Maya's surprise was evident. "Congratulations. I didn't realize you were in a relationship." Connor laughed, shaking his head. I'm not. The engagement is for me. I'm asking someone to marry me, but I need an event planned where I can do it properly, surrounded by friends and family. Maya blinked, trying to process this information. You're planning to propose to someone, but you're not in a relationship with them yet. No, he clarified quickly. I'm seeing someone, but it's been complicated by distance and schedules. We've been dating for several months, but we've kept it very private. Sophia doesn't even know yet. I see, Maya said, though she didn't, not really. Something uncomfortable twisted in her stomach. Disappointment, she realized with dismay. Which was ridiculous, since she'd only just met the man and had no claim on him whatsoever. The thing is, Connor continued, I'd like to hire you to plan that event as well, but I need absolute discretion. Sophia can't know about it until after her brunch. I don't want to steal her thunder. Maya nodded automatically, professional instincts kicking in despite her confusion. Of course, client confidentiality is something I take very seriously. Excellent. Could we meet next week to discuss details? Perhaps Monday. Monday works, she agreed, her mind already compartmentalizing. If Connor Bennett was planning to propose to some mystery woman, that was his business. Maya's job was to create memorable events, not develop inappropriate feelings for clients. I'll call to set up a time, he said, then reached out to shake her hand. His touch lingered a moment longer than necessary. Thank you, Maya, for everything. As she watched him walk to his car, a different luxury vehicle today, a Range Rover, Maya forced herself to focus on the task at hand, creating the perfect engagement brunch for Sophia. Whatever complicated romantic situation Connor was involved in, it had nothing to do with her. The next week passed in a blur of vendor calls, design mock-ups, and detailed scheduling for Sophia's brunch. Maya threw herself into the work, determined to deliver an exceptional event and to push thoughts of Connor Bennett out of her mind. Sophia stopped by Maya's office on Friday to review the plans, bringing coffee and pastries from Percolate. These designs are beautiful, she exclaimed, flipping through Maya's digital portfolio of the proposed setup. The color scheme is exactly what I wanted, and I love how you've incorporated the garden elements. I'm glad you approve, Maya said, genuinely pleased by Sophia's reaction. She enjoyed working with clients who appreciated attention to detail. I've confirmed all the vendors, and everything is on track for next Saturday. Connor mentioned he met with you about some additional elements, Sophia said casually. He was very impressed, by the way. Said you're even more talented than he expected. Maya felt a flush of pleasure at the compliment. Your brother has some wonderful ideas for making the day special. He always does. Connor's thoughtful that way, always planning the perfect surprise. Sophia sipped her coffee, watching Maya over the rim of her cup. He also mentioned your meeting with him on Monday. Yes, Maya answered carefully, mindful of the confidentiality Connor had requested. He has a few more details to discuss. Sophia said, a slight smile playing at her lips. You know, Connor rarely takes such an interest in event planning. He must find you very impressive. Not knowing how to respond to this obvious fishing expedition, Maya redirected the conversation to safer ground. How's Daniel feeling about all the festivities? Some grooms get overwhelmed by the planning process. Sophia laughed. Daniel's happy to let me take the lead. As long as there's good food and his family is there, he's content. She gathered her things, preparing to leave. I should let you get back to work. But Maya, I'm really glad Connor recommended you. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot more of you in the future. The cryptic comment stayed with Maya throughout the weekend as she finalized details for both the brunch and her upcoming meeting with Connor. What had Sophia meant? And why did her words feel weighted with implication? Monday morning arrived with a spring downpour that turned the city streets slick and gray. Maya arrived at her office early, intending to prepare for her meeting with Connor, only to find a message from him requesting a change of venue. "Something's come up at my office. Could you meet me there instead? 10 a.m., Bennett Development Group, Downtown Tower." Maya sent a quick confirmation and adjusted her schedule. She'd heard of Bennett Development Group. It was one of Portland's more successful real estate firms, but hadn't connected it to Connor. The pieces were starting to fit together: his obvious wealth, the luxury cars, the West Hills residence. Connor wasn't just successful. He was the head of a major development company. At 10 o'clock sharp, Maya stepped off the elevator onto the top floor of one of Portland's most prestigious office buildings. The reception area of Bennett Development Group featured floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of the city, sleek modern furniture, and a massive living wall of tropical plants. "Miss Atkinson." The receptionist greeted her immediately. "Mr. Bennett is expecting you. Please follow me." She was led through an open workspace where well-dressed professionals moved purposefully between glass-walled conference rooms and private offices. At the end of the corridor stood an imposing set of double doors, which the receptionist opened without knocking. "Miss Atkinson to see you, Mr. Bennett." Connor rose from behind a massive desk of polished wood and glass. Behind him, windows showcased a stunning view of the Willamette River and the mountains beyond. The office was tastefully decorated with contemporary art, and a few architectural models displayed on pedestals. "Maya, thank you for coming," Connor said, coming around the desk to greet her. He wore a charcoal suit today that emphasized his broad shoulders and athletic build. "I apologize for the change in plans. We had a situation with one of our Seattle projects that required immediate attention." "It's no problem," Maya replied, taking in the impressive surroundings. "I didn't realize you were Bennett Development Group." Connor gestured for her to take a seat in one of the leather chairs positioned in front of his desk. "I should have been clearer. Does it change anything?" She considered the question. "Only in that I now understand why budget hasn't been a concern for Sophia's brunch or your mysterious engagement party." He smiled, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "About that, I'd like to discuss the details today if you're available." "Of course. That's why I'm here." Connor pressed a button on his desk phone. "Lisa, hold my calls for the next hour unless it's the Seattle team. And could you have lunch brought in for Miss Atkinson and me at noon? The usual from Riverside would be perfect." "Right away, Mr. Bennett," came the immediate response. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Planning to keep me that long?" "I hope you can spare the time," Connor said, his tone making it clear he expected she would. "This event is important to me and I value your expertise." For the next hour, they discussed his vision for the engagement party, an intimate gathering of 30 close friends and family at his home, where he planned to propose to his girlfriend during dinner. He wanted something elegant and romantic without being ostentatious. "She's not one for grand gestures or public spectacles," Connor explained. "I want it to feel natural, not staged, but still memorable." "Tell me about her," Maya prompted, trying to ignore the twinge of jealousy she felt. "What is she like? What's meaningful to your relationship?" Connor hesitated, running a hand through his dark hair. "She's brilliant, independent, creatively minded but practical. She has this ability to see possibilities in spaces that others miss." He paused. "We connected over a shared appreciation for transforming environments, creating something special out of the ordinary." Maya made notes, trying to maintain professional detachment. "And how did you meet?" "Through work, initially. She was recommended to me by someone whose opinion I value." The description was frustratingly vague. Maya pressed for more concrete details. Does she have favorite flowers, colors, any special locations that have significance for your relationship? Connor leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with an intensity that made her skin warm. She once mentioned loving peonies, said they reminded her of possibilities unfolding. As for colors, she tends toward classic palettes with unexpected touches of vibrancy. And there's a spot in my garden that overlooks the city lights. We've had meaningful conversations there. As Maya continued to gather information, she built a mental image of this woman. Connor wanted to marry someone sophisticated and intelligent, who shared his eye for beauty and potential. Someone very different from Maya herself, who spent her days juggling vendor contracts and budget spreadsheets. "I'd like to see the space," she said finally. "Your home, where you're planning to host this. It would help me visualize the setup. Of course. Are you free tomorrow evening? Say 7 o'clock. I could show you around and we could discuss the plans further over dinner." The invitation sounded dangerously close to a date, except, of course, it wasn't. Connor was planning to propose to another woman. Maya was simply the event planner making it happen. That would work, she agreed, keeping her tone brisk and professional. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of lunch, an elegant spread from Riverside that the assistant arranged on a conference table near the windows. As they moved to the table, Connor pulled out Maya's chair for her, his hand brushing her shoulder as she sat down. "I hope you don't mind my ordering for you," he said, taking the seat across from her. "The chef at Riverside creates an excellent seasonal menu." The meal was indeed superb, a light spring soup, followed by perfectly seared salmon with spring vegetables. Throughout lunch, their conversation drifted away from event planning to more personal topics. Connor asked about her background, her decision to start her own business, her dreams for its future. "You should consider expanding," he suggested as they finished their meal. "Your talent deserves a larger platform." Maya laughed softly. "That requires capital I don't have. For now, I'm happy building my client base one successful event at a time." Connor's expression grew thoughtful. "I know something about starting small and scaling up. If you ever want to discuss business development strategies, I'd be happy to offer some perspective." "I'll keep that in mind," Maya said, though she couldn't imagine what advice a real estate magnate might have for her modest event planning business. As she gathered her notes to leave, Connor walked her to the elevator. "I'll text you my address for tomorrow evening," he said, standing perhaps a bit closer than strictly necessary. "Thank you for making time for this, Maya. It means a great deal to me." The sincerity in his voice made her look up, meeting those blue eyes that seemed to see right through her professional facade. For a moment, she could almost imagine he was talking about something more than just planning an event. "It's what I do," she replied, stepping into the elevator. "Create memorable moments." The doors closed on his smile and Maya leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. This was getting complicated. She was developing feelings for a client who was planning to propose to someone else, someone he clearly cared for deeply. The professional thing would be to refer him to another planner and remove herself from the situation. But Maya couldn't bring herself to do it. Not only would it mean losing the substantial fee for planning his event, but she also couldn't bear the thought of not seeing Connor again. Even if it meant helping him create the perfect proposal for another woman. The following evening, Maya drove through the exclusive West Hills neighborhood, following her GPS to Connor's address. The homes here were set far back from the winding road, hidden behind security gates and lush landscaping. When she reached Connor's property, she was greeted by an elegant stone entrance with tasteful lighting illuminating the discreet house number. After identifying herself through the intercom, the gates swung open silently. Maya drove up the curved driveway, her first glimpse of Connor's home taking her breath away. The contemporary mansion was a masterpiece of glass, stone, and wood, nestled into the hillside as if it had grown there naturally. Soft landscape lighting highlighted mature trees and artistic plantings that framed the approach. Before she could reach for her car door, Connor appeared on the front steps. He wore dark trousers and a casual white shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him yet. As he opened her car door, Maya caught his appreciative glance at her outfit, a simple emerald wrap dress that she'd chosen for its professional but flattering cut. "Welcome," he said, offering his hand to help her from the car. "I'm glad you found the place without trouble." "Your directions were perfect," she replied, accepting his assistance though she didn't need it. His hand was warm around hers, and he didn't immediately let go once she was standing. "Come inside. I'll give you the tour, then we can discuss the event over dinner." The interior of the home was even more impressive than its exterior. Soaring ceilings and walls of glass showcased panoramic views of Portland and the mountains beyond. The decor was minimalist but warm, comfortable furniture in neutral tones, striking art pieces, and strategic lighting that created a cozy atmosphere despite the grand scale of the rooms. "This is beautiful," Maya said sincerely, as they moved through the main living areas. "Did you design it yourself?" "I worked closely with the architect," Connor confirmed. "It was a passion project, creating a home that felt both impressive and livable. The balance isn't easy to achieve." Maya nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "That's often the challenge in events too, creating something special without crossing into ostentatious." Connor smiled. "Exactly why I wanted your input on this engagement party. You understand the nuance." He led her through the house to an expansive back terrace with an outdoor kitchen, seating areas around a fire pit, and a stunning infinity pool that appeared to drop off into the city lights below. Beyond the pool area, terraced gardens descended the hillside, with stone pathways winding through carefully cultivated plantings. "This is where I envisioned hosting the dinner," Connor said, gesturing to the terrace. "Weather permitting, of course." "And that area there," he pointed to a secluded garden pavilion visible down one of the paths, "is where I thought I might actually propose. It offers privacy for the moment itself, but we could rejoin the guests for the celebration afterward." Maya tried to focus on the logistics rather than the romantic implications. "It's a beautiful setting. We could use string lights in the trees along the path, maybe scattered candles and hurricane lamps to guide the way to the pavilion. Simple, elegant floral arrangements on the dinner tables that complement the garden without competing with it." As they walked the grounds together, Maya took notes and photos, suggesting placement for catering stations and potential flow for the evening. Connor listened attentively, occasionally brushing against her as they navigated narrow garden paths. Each contact sent a thrill through her that she desperately tried to ignore. "And here's the spot I mentioned," Connor said finally, leading her to a small stone terrace nestled among flowering shrubs. A carved wooden bench faced outward, offering a breathtaking view of the twinkling city lights below. "This is where we've had those meaningful conversations I told you about." Maya could imagine it clearly, Connor sitting here with the woman he loved, discussing their future together as the city glowed beneath them. The image sent a pang through her heart. "It's perfect," she said quietly. "Very romantic. She'll be touched that you chose a place with such significance." Connor turned to look at her, his expression unreadable in the gathering twilight. "I hope so," he said, his voice low. "It matters to me that this is done right." They stood for a moment in silence, the evening breeze carrying the scent of jasmine from nearby vines. Maya was acutely aware of Connor's proximity, the warmth radiating from his body in the cool evening air. "We should head back to the house," he said finally. "Dinner should be ready, and we can discuss the details further." Inside, Connor led her to a dining room where the table was already set with fine china, crystal, and flickering candles. A bottle of wine breathed in a decanter nearby. "I hope you don't mind, but I asked my housekeeper to prepare something for us," Connor explained, pulling out a chair for Maya. "She's an excellent cook, and I thought it would be easier to continue our discussion here rather than at a restaurant." The intimate setting felt dangerously like a date, but Maya reminded herself firmly that this was a business meeting. They were discussing his engagement party, his proposal to another woman. Over a delicious meal of herb-roasted chicken, spring vegetables, and crusty bread, they continued to plan the event. Connor had definite ideas about the menu and music, but deferred to Maya on most of the aesthetic elements. "I wanted to feel authentic," he explained, refilling her wine glass. "Not like a staged production, but a genuine gathering of people who care about each other, with one special moment at its heart." Maya nodded. "The best celebrations always have that quality. They feel organic, even though every detail has been carefully considered. It's about creating an environment where meaningful moments can unfold naturally." "Exactly," Connor agreed, his eyes warm as they met hers across the table. "That's what drew me to your work in the first place. You understand that balance." The conversation flowed easily as they finished their meal and moved to the living room with coffee. Maya found herself sharing stories about her most challenging events, and Connor responded with tales of difficult development projects that had ultimately succeeded. "We're not so different," he observed as they sat on his comfortable sofa, the city lights twinkling below through the wall of windows. "We both create spaces for people to experience something meaningful." "I suppose that's true," Maya agreed, aware that they had shifted closer together during their conversation. "Though your creations are considerably more permanent than mine." "Not necessarily," Connor said thoughtfully. "Buildings come and go, but memories the kind you help create, those can last a lifetime." The sincerity in his voice made Maya look up, finding him watching her with an intensity that quickened her pulse. For a moment she thought he might lean closer, and she wasn't sure she would stop him if he did. Instead, Connor glanced at his watch and cleared his throat. "It's getting late. I should let you go. But thank you for coming tonight, Maya. Your insights are invaluable." The spell broken, Maya gathered her notes and tablet, suddenly eager to escape the confusing emotions Connor stirred in her. At the front door, he held her coat for her, his fingers brushing her shoulders as she slipped it on. "I'll have a contract drawn up for the engagement party and send it over tomorrow," she said, retreating into professionalism. "Once that's signed, I can begin securing vendors." "Perfect," Connor replied, walking her to her car. "And Maya?" She turned, the interior light of her car illuminating his face as he stood by the open door. "Yes, I've enjoyed this evening. Very much." The simple statement, delivered with such quiet sincerity, stayed with Maya long after she'd driven away from Connor's magnificent home. What was she doing, developing feelings for a man who was planning to propose to someone else? Someone he clearly cared for deeply, who shared his sophisticated world in ways Maya never could. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparations for both events. Maya threw herself into the details of Sophia's brunch, communicating with Connor primarily by email and text about both celebrations. She told herself she was relieved by the professional distance, though each notification from him still sent her heart racing. 3 days before Sophia's brunch, Maya met with her at the venue for a final walkthrough. Everything was coming together beautifully, The tent had been erected in the rose garden. Sample table settings demonstrated the elegant but relaxed aesthetic they'd planned, and the catering team was prepared with the customized menu. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined," Sophia said, admiring the layout. "Daniel is going to be thrilled, and wait until our friends see this, they'll be blown away." "I'm glad you're pleased," Maya replied. "Your brother had some wonderful ideas for the surprise elements." The photo display will be set up tomorrow, and the string quartet is confirmed for the arrival music. At the mention of Connor, Sophia gave Maya a curious look. "You two have been working closely together on this, haven't you?" "He's been very involved in the planning," Maya said carefully. "He clearly wants your day to be special." Sophia's expression was thoughtful. "You know, Connor doesn't usually take such an interest in event details. He's more of a big-picture person." Not knowing how to respond, Maya redirected the conversation to the arrival timeline for Saturday. But Sophia's observation lingered in her mind as she drove back to her office. Why had Connor been so involved in the brunch planning? Was it simply his devotion to his sister, or was there another reason? The day of Sophia's engagement brunch dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for the garden celebration. Maya arrived at the venue 3 hours early to oversee the final setup and coordinate with vendors. The caterers were arranging their stations, the florist was putting finishing touches on the table centerpieces, and the string quartet was setting up near the entrance. "Everything looks amazing," a deep voice said behind her as she checked off items on her clipboard. Maya turned to find Connor watching her, looking devastatingly handsome in light gray trousers and a blue shirt that matched his eyes. Her heart did a little flip before she could remind it that he belonged to someone else. "Good morning," she greeted him, proud of her professional tone. "You're early. I wanted to see the surprise elements before Sophia arrives." He moved closer, surveying the transformed garden. "You've outdone yourself, Maya. This is exactly what I envisioned, only better." "Thank you," she said, pleased by his approval despite herself. "The photo display is set up in the alcove we discussed. Would you like to see it before guests arrive?" As they walked together through the gardens, Maya pointed out various details: the custom cocktail station featuring Sophia and Daniel's favorite drinks, the vintage cake stand she'd found for the specialty pastries, the subtly positioned speakers that would allow the string quartet's music to be heard throughout the venue. "You've thought of everything," Connor said, genuine admiration in his voice. "No wonder your reputation is growing so quickly." They reached the secluded alcove where photographs of Sophia and Daniel's relationship journey were artfully displayed on elegant stands. Interspersed with the photos were handwritten notes from friends and family, sharing memories and well wishes. "This is perfect," Connor said softly, examining the display. "Sophia will be touched." He turned to Maya, standing so close she could detect the subtle scent of his cologne. "Thank you for making this happen exactly as we discussed. I know my sister will remember this day forever." Something in his voice made Maya look up, meeting his intense blue gaze. For a moment, they stood frozen, something unspoken passing between them. The spell was broken by the ringing of Maya's phone, the catering manager, with a quick question about the champagne service. By the time she ended the call, the moment had passed, and Connor had stepped back to a more professional distance. "I should greet the cousins from Chicago," he said. "They arrived last night and are probably wondering where to go." "Of course," Maya nodded, relief and disappointment mingling as he walked away. She needed to focus on the event, not on her inappropriate feelings for the client's brother. The brunch unfolded perfectly, with 60 guests mingling through the beautiful gardens, enjoying gourmet food and champagne as the string quartet played. Sophia was genuinely surprised by the appearance of her Chicago cousins and moved to tears by the photo display. Throughout the event, Maya maintained professional efficiency, directing the catering staff, cueing the musicians, and ensuring every detail was executed flawlessly. She couldn't help noticing, however, that Connor seemed to always be nearby. Whenever she glanced up from a task, his eyes were often on her, thoughtful and warm. Once, when a waiter nearly collided with her while carrying a tray of champagne flutes, Connor materialized at her side, his hand steadying her elbow to prevent the accident. "Careful there," he murmured, his touch lingering a moment longer than necessary. "We can't have the mastermind behind this beautiful event wearing champagne, can we?" As the celebration reached its peak, Sophia sought out Maya near the dessert table. "This is beyond perfect," she said, hugging Maya impulsively. "Everyone is raving about how beautiful everything is, and Daniel's family is especially impressed. Thank you for making our day so special." "It's been my pleasure," Maya replied sincerely. "You and Daniel seem very happy together." "We are," Sophia agreed, her eyes twinkling. "And speaking of happiness, I notice my brother hasn't taken his eyes off you all day." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "He's probably just monitoring the event execution. He was very involved in the planning." I'm sure that's it," Sophia said with obvious skepticism. "You know, Connor works too hard, always has. Even when we were kids, he was the serious one, taking responsibility for everything." She sipped her champagne, watching her brother across the garden as he chatted with Daniel's parents. "He needs someone who reminds him to enjoy life, not just build it." Before Maya could respond to this obvious hint, Sophia was called away by her fiancé for photos. Maya busied herself with final dessert service preparations, trying to ignore the implications of Sophia's comments. As the brunch wound down in the late afternoon, guests gradually departed with warm congratulations for the engaged couple. Maya supervised the initial cleanup, ensuring vendors had proper instructions for breakdown after all guests had left. Connor approached as she was checking final invoices with the catering manager. "Maya, do you have a moment?" he asked once she'd completed the transaction. "Of course," she replied, following him to a quiet corner of the garden. "Is everything all right?" "Better than all right," he said, smiling. "The event was perfect. Sophia is thrilled, and everyone had a wonderful time. I wanted to thank you personally for making it happen exactly as we envisioned." "I'm glad it met your expectations," Maya said. Sophia and Daniel seemed very happy with everything. Connor nodded, then hesitated, running a hand through his dark hair in a gesture Maya had come to recognize as a sign he was contemplating something important. "I was wondering if you might join me for dinner tonight, to celebrate the success of the event." Maya blinked, caught off guard by the invitation. "Oh, that's very kind, but I should finish overseeing the cleanup here, and then I have some preparation to do for your engagement party next weekend." "The cleanup is well in hand," Connor countered, gesturing to the efficient vendor teams already at work. "And I promise not to keep you too late, just dinner, to express my appreciation for your exceptional work today." It was a bad idea, Maya knew that. Her feelings for Connor were already complicated enough without adding a private dinner to the mix, but looking at his hopeful expression, she found herself unable to refuse. "All right," she agreed. "Thank you, that would be nice." His smile was immediate and warming. "Excellent. Shall we say 8 o'clock? I can pick you up or we can meet at the restaurant if you prefer." "I'll meet you there," Maya said quickly, maintaining at least that small professional boundary. "Where are we going?" "There's a small Italian place in the Pearl District, Vesuvio. Do you know it?" Maya nodded. The intimate restaurant was known for its authentic cuisine and romantic atmosphere, not the most appropriate choice for a business dinner, but she decided not to comment on that. "I'll see you there at 8 then," she said, already wondering if she had time to go home and change first. Connor reached out, briefly touching her arm. "Thank you, Maya. Not just for tonight, but for everything today. You're quite remarkable, you know." The compliment stayed with her as she finished her duties at the venue and headed home to prepare for dinner. Despite her better judgment, Maya found herself taking extra care with her appearance, choosing a simple but elegant black dress, applying makeup with more attention than usual, and wearing her hair down rather than in her typical professional updo. Vesuvio was busy when she arrived, but Connor was already waiting, having secured a cozy corner table illuminated by candlelight. He stood as she approached, his appreciative gaze making her glad she'd taken the time to change. "You look beautiful," he said simply as she sat down. "I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering a bottle of wine, the Montepulciano they're known for here." "That sounds perfect," Maya replied, trying to ignore how intimate the setting felt. This was just a professional thank you dinner, she reminded herself. Nothing more. The wine arrived, and Connor raised his glass once they'd been served. "To successful collaborations," he said, his blue eyes holding hers over the rim of his glass. "And to Sophia and Daniel's happiness," Maya added, touching her glass to his. The conversation flowed easily as they enjoyed the excellent food burrata with heirloom tomatoes to start, followed by handmade pasta with seafood for Maya and osso buco for Connor. They discussed the brunch's success, laughing over small moments that had particularly pleased Sophia. "Your sister mentioned that you don't usually get so involved in event planning," Maya said as they finished their main courses. "She seemed surprised by how much input you had." Connor smiled, a slight flush coloring his cheekbones. "Did she? Well, I suppose she's right. But this was a special occasion. Because it's your sister's engagement." "That," he agreed, "and because I had a particularly talented event planner to work with, it made the process enjoyable rather than tedious." The compliment warmed her more than it should have. "Well, I appreciate your involvement. Your ideas enhanced the event considerably." As they lingered over tiramisu and espresso, the conversation drifted to more personal topics. Connor asked about her childhood in Oregon, her college years studying marketing, and her dreams for her business. In turn, he shared stories about growing up with Sophia, losing their parents, and how that loss had shaped his drive to succeed. "I felt responsible for her," he explained, his expression softening when he spoke of his sister. "She was still in college when our parents died. I was just starting out in real estate, had one small renovation project underway. I knew I had to make it work, not just for me but for her too." "And clearly you did," Maya said. "More than made it work. Bennett Development Group is one of the most respected firms in Portland now." Connor shrugged, somehow making the gesture elegant rather than dismissive. "Business success came, yes, but there are other kinds of success that matter more, like family," Maya suggested. "Family, relationships." His gaze was steady on hers. "Finding someone who sees you for who you really are, not what you've built." The comment hung between them, loaded with implication. Maya reminded herself that he was referring to the woman he planned to propose to in just a week's time. "That's why your engagement party is so important to you," she said, forcing herself to acknowledge the reality. "Because you found that person." A curious expression crossed Connor's face, something between amusement and tenderness. "Yes," he said simply. "I believe I have." The evening ended shortly after, with Connor insisting on paying the bill despite Maya's protest that this was supposed to be a business dinner. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Connor placed his jacket around her shoulders when she shivered. "Thank you for dinner," Maya said, holding the warm jacket close around her. "It was lovely." "Thank you for joining me," Connor replied. He stood closer than strictly necessary, his expression contemplative as he looked down at her. Maya, whatever he had been about to say was interrupted by the arrival of Maya's rideshare car. Connor's mouth tightened briefly in frustration, but he recovered quickly, opening the car door for her. "We'll talk more this week," he said as she slipped into the back seat. "About the engagement party." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. As the car pulled away, she glanced back to see Connor standing on the sidewalk, watching her departure with an unreadable expression. The week leading up to Connor's engagement party was filled with intense preparation and minimal direct contact with Connor himself. He responded promptly to her emails and texts about event details, but didn't suggest another in-person meeting. Maya told herself this was for the best. The less time spent in his presence, the easier it would be to maintain professional boundaries. On Friday afternoon, the day before the party, Maya arrived at Connor's home to oversee the initial setup. Florists were creating the arrangements she'd designed. Lighting technicians were stringing the delicate lights through the garden trees, and the catering team was preparing the outdoor kitchen area for the following evening. Connor wasn't home when she arrived. His housekeeper explained he had meetings in Seattle but would return that evening. Maya was simultaneously relieved and disappointed by his absence. It allowed her to focus entirely on the event preparations without the distraction of his presence, but she couldn't help feeling a pang at missing the opportunity to see him. By early evening, the transformation of Connor's already beautiful home was taking shape. The terrace had been set with elegant dining tables positioned to maximize the view, while still allowing for intimate conversation. The path to the garden pavilion was lined with hurricane lamps that would hold flickering candles, and the pavilion itself had been draped with sheer fabric and adorned with subtle floral arrangements featuring peonies, his girlfriend's favorite flower. Maya was checking the final lighting placement when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." She turned to find Connor standing at the edge of the terrace, his expression one of genuine amazement as he surveyed the scene. He looked tired, as if his trip to Seattle had been demanding, but his smile was warm as he approached her. "Welcome back," Maya said, trying to ignore how her pulse quickened at the sight of him. "I hope your meetings went well." "Productive but exhausting," he admitted, coming to stand beside her. "But coming home to this, you've created something magical, Maya." The sincere admiration in his voice made her both proud and melancholy. "I'm glad you approve. Everything is on track for tomorrow evening. The caterers will arrive at 4, music setup begins at 5, and we're prepared to welcome guests at 7. Connor nodded, his gaze traveling over the beautiful setting before returning to her face. "And you've thought about the timing for the proposal itself?" "Yes," Maya said, consulting her tablet to maintain professional distance. "After dinner, around 9 o'clock, the string quartet will begin playing that piece you requested. That's your cue to invite her to walk with you to the garden pavilion. The path will be lit with candles, and the pavilion itself will be illuminated with soft lights and surrounded by those peonies she loves." The description made her throat tight with emotion, imagining the romantic scene she had created for another woman's magical moment with Connor. "It sounds perfect," Connor said quietly. "Exactly what I wanted." "I hope she'll be happy," Maya said, meaning it despite the ache in her chest. "You've put so much thought into making this special for her." Connor was watching her with that intense blue gaze that seemed to see right through her professional facade. That's what matters most, that she understands how much this means to me, how much she means to me. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She busied herself with checking items off her list, aware that Connor continued to study her with that thoughtful expression. "You should go home and rest," he said finally. "Tomorrow will be a long day." "I just have a few more details to review with the lighting team," she replied. "But yes, I'll leave soon." Connor hesitated, then reached out to touch her arm lightly. "Maya, after tomorrow, when all this is over, there's something I'd like to discuss with you." Her heart stuttered at his touch and the serious tone of his voice. "About another event." A slight smile touched his lips. "In a manner of speaking, but not what you're thinking." Before she could ask what he meant, Connor's phone rang, the special ringtone he'd assigned to his sister. Maya had learned during their planning sessions. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "I need to take this. Sophia's calling from her bachelorette weekend." He gave Maya's arm a gentle squeeze before stepping away to answer the call. "Go home and rest. I'll see you tomorrow." As Maya drove home that evening, she couldn't stop wondering about what Connor wanted to discuss after the engagement party. Perhaps a larger event, a wedding, once his proposal was accepted. The thought sent a fresh wave of sadness through her. Seeing Connor pledge himself to another woman tomorrow night would be difficult enough. Planning their wedding might be more than her heart could bear. Saturday dawned clear and warm, another perfect day for an outdoor celebration. Maya arrived at Connor's home at noon, dressed in her standard event day uniform of black pants and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Today was not about her. It was about creating Connor's perfect moment with the woman he loved. The day passed in a blur of activity, coordinating deliveries, directing staff, solving last-minute problems. Connor appeared occasionally, offering assistance or answering questions, but he seemed distracted, almost nervous. Maya assumed it was natural pre-proposal jitters and gave him space. By 6:30, everything was ready. The terrace gleamed with candlelight and twinkling lights overhead. Tables were set with fine china, crystal, and lush floral centerpieces. The garden path to the pavilion was lined with hurricane lamps waiting to be lit, and the pavilion itself was a vision of romantic elegance, with peonies and soft drapery creating an intimate setting for the upcoming proposal. Maya stood at the edge of the terrace, surveying her work with professional pride despite her personal heartache. This was perhaps the most beautiful event she'd ever created, and it was for a moment she couldn't bear to witness. "Maya." She turned to find Connor approaching, and her breath caught at the sight of him. He wore a perfectly tailored dark suit with a white shirt open at the collar, casual elegance that suited him perfectly. "Everything's ready," she said, gesturing to the transformed space. "Your guests will arrive in half an hour. The bar is set up, servers are prepared, and the quartet is doing final sound checks." Connor nodded, but his attention seemed focused entirely on her rather than the event preparations. "You've created something extraordinary here," he said quietly. "Thank you for understanding exactly what I wanted." "I'm glad you're pleased," Maya replied, attempting to maintain professional distance despite the intensity of his gaze. "I should check on the kitchen, Maya," Connor interrupted, gently catching her arm as she started to move past him. "Before everyone arrives, I wanted to ask, will you stay for the entire event tonight?" The question surprised her. "Of course. That's standard for all my events. I'll be here to oversee everything and handle any issues that arise." "No, I mean," Connor ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as a sign of nervousness. "Will you stay as a guest, not just as the coordinator? Change into something more comfortable and join the celebration." Maya blinked, confused by the request. That's not usually how I work. I stay in the background, making sure everything runs smoothly. I know, Connor said, his voice low and earnest, but tonight is different. I'd like you to be part of it, not just managing it. Please, I've had your assistant pack a dress for you. It's in the guest room upstairs. My assistant. Maya was genuinely bewildered now. Emma. She didn't mention anything to me. A slight smile touched Connor's lips. I may have sworn her to secrecy. Please, Maya, it would mean a great deal to me if you would join the party as a guest. Still confused but unable to refuse the sincere request, Maya nodded. All right, if that's what you want. It is, Connor said, relief evident in his voice. More than you know. He checked his watch. Guests will start arriving soon. Why don't you go up now? Emma sent over something for you to change into second door on the right at the top of the stairs. Mystified by the unusual request, Maya made her way upstairs to the indicated guest room. Opening the door, she found a spacious bedroom decorated in soothing blues and creams, with a stunning mountain view from the large windows. Laid out on the bed was a dress she recognized from her own closet, a simple but elegant midnight blue sheath that Emma must have retrieved from her apartment. Next to the dress was a note in Emma's handwriting. Trust me, you want to be dressed for this. And Maya, sometimes the most memorable moments are the ones we don't plan. Love, Emma. The cryptic message did nothing to clarify the situation. But Maya changed into the dress anyway, refreshed her makeup, and let her hair down from its practical ponytail. Looking in the mirror, she had to admit the effect was transformative. She looked like a guest at a sophisticated dinner party rather than the event coordinator. When she descended the stairs 20 minutes later, guests had already begun to arrive. Maya recognized several faces from Sophia's brunch, Connor's close friends, and a few family members, including Sophia and Daniel themselves, who had apparently returned early from their bachelorette and bachelor weekends. Sophia spotted Maya immediately and hurried over, looking stunning in a rose-colored dress. Maya, you look beautiful, she exclaimed, hugging her warmly. I'm so glad Connor convinced you to join as a guest tonight. Thank you, Maya replied, still confused by the whole situation. I'm a bit surprised to see you here. I thought you were away for your bachelorette weekend. Sophia's eyes sparkled with mischief. And miss this? Not a chance. Besides, I had to be here to see my brother finally. Sophia, Connor's voice interrupted as he joined them. I see you've found Maya. His eyes traveled appreciatively over Maya's transformation, lingering on her face with a warmth that made her cheeks flush. You look beautiful, he said softly. Thank you, Maya murmured, increasingly bewildered by the situation. Connor, I don't understand what's happening. Where is, she hesitated, realizing she still didn't know the name of the woman he was planning to propose to tonight. Where is your girlfriend? Shouldn't she be here by now? A curious smile played at Connor's lips. She is here, he said simply, his blue eyes fixed intently on hers. Before Maya could respond, a waiter appeared with champagne flutes on a tray. Connor took two, handing one to Maya. Enjoy the party, he said. We'll talk more later. As he moved away to greet other guests, Sophia linked her arm through Maya's. Come on, she said, leading her toward the terrace. Let me introduce you to some people who are dying to meet the woman who created this incredible evening. For the next hour, Maya found herself in the strange position of being treated as an honored guest at an event she had planned. Friends and family of Connor's complimented her on both the beautiful celebration and, curiously, on her professional accomplishments, as if they all knew exactly who she was. Several made comments that hinted at more than professional admiration between her and Connor, leaving Maya increasingly confused. The mystery deepened when dinner was served. Maya discovered that she had been seated at the head table, directly beside Connor's empty chair. On her other side was Sophia, who chatted happily throughout the meal about her upcoming wedding plans. Connor's been invaluable with all the arrangements, Sophia said as they enjoyed the exquisite meal Maya had selected weeks earlier. Though I think he's been even more invested in planning tonight. Maya set down her fork, unable to contain her confusion any longer. Sophia, what's going on? Where is Connor's girlfriend, the woman he's planning to propose to tonight? Sophia's eyes widened in genuine surprise. You really don't know, do you? She shook her head, laughing softly. Oh, Maya. For someone so perceptive about creating perfect moments, you've missed something rather important. Before Maya could demand clarification, Connor returned to the table, taking his seat beside her. Everything all right? He asked, noting her flustered expression. I was just telling Maya how much effort you've put into planning tonight, Sophia said, giving her brother a meaningful look before rising from her seat. I should check on Daniel. He's telling that fishing story again, and someone needs to rescue his audience. As Sophia departed, Connor turned his full attention to Maya. Are you enjoying the evening? He asked. It's lovely, she replied honestly. But Connor, I'm confused. Everyone is acting as if I'm something more than just the event planner. And I still haven't seen the woman you're planning to propose to. Connor's expression softened, a smile playing at his lips. Haven't you? He asked quietly. Before Maya could respond, the string quartet began playing the piece Connor had selected for the proposal moment, a romantic melody that filled the terrace with its sweet notes. Conversations quieted as guests turned their attention to Connor, expectation evident on their faces. Connor stood, extending his hand to Maya. Would you walk with me? There's something I'd like to show you. Heart hammering in her chest, Maya placed her hand in his, allowing him to lead her from the table. The guests watched with knowing smiles as Connor guided her toward the garden path, now illuminated by flickering candles and hurricane lamps, exactly as she had planned for his proposal walk. Connor, Maya said as they descended the steps from the terrace, I don't understand what's happening. He squeezed her hand gently, continuing along the candlelit path toward the pavilion. Do you remember what you told me about creating moments that feel organic even though every detail has been carefully considered? Maya nodded, her mind racing to make sense of the situation. That's what tonight is, Connor continued, his voice low and intimate in the evening air. A carefully considered moment that I hope will feel absolutely right. They reached the pavilion, transformed by Maya's design into a romantic haven of soft lights, draped fabric, and lush peonies. Connor led her to the center of the space, then turned to face her, still holding her hand in his. Maya, he said, his blue eyes intense in the gentle lighting. From the moment I met you at Riverside that first night, I knew there was something special about you. Your intelligence, your creativity, your genuine care for creating meaningful experiences, all of it captivated me. Maya's breath caught as understanding began to dawn. The engagement party, she whispered. It was never for someone else, was it? Connor smiled, reaching up to touch her cheek gently. No, it was always for you. From the beginning, I hoped it would be for us. But Maya's mind whirled with confusion. You talked about a girlfriend, someone you'd been seeing for months. I may have exaggerated certain aspects, Connor admitted, a touch of color appearing on his cheekbones. When I described someone brilliant and independent, who could see possibilities in spaces that others missed, I was describing you, Maya. Every detail from the peonies you once mentioned loving when we discussed Sophia's flowers, to this spot in my garden where we had that meaningful conversation about creating spaces for important moments, it was all about you. But we've only known each other for weeks, Maya protested weakly, even as her heart soared with impossible hope. I know it seems fast, Connor acknowledged, and I'm not actually proposing marriage tonight, though I won't rule that out for the future. His smile was both tender and mischievous. What I am proposing is that we stop pretending this is just a professional relationship. That we acknowledge what I think we've both felt from the beginning, that there's something remarkable between us, something worth exploring. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed not an engagement ring but an exquisite pendant, a peony blossom crafted of diamonds and pink sapphires. "Maya Atkinson," Connor said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "Would you do me the honor of accepting this gift as a symbol of new beginnings? And perhaps consider joining me for dinner tomorrow night, not as my event planner, but as the woman I've fallen in love with." Tears filled Maya's eyes as the full truth of the situation washed over her. All those careful discussions about an engagement party had been Connor's elaborate way of creating a perfect moment for them. The mysterious girlfriend had never existed. The event she had so painstakingly designed, believing it was for another woman, had always been intended as the backdrop for this moment between them. "You orchestrated all of this," she said, half laughing, half crying, "just to ask me to dinner." Connor grinned, the expression transforming his handsome face with boyish charm. "I admit it might have been a bit elaborate, but in my defense, I was working with the best event planner in Portland. The occasion called for something special." Joy bubbled up inside Maya, expanding until she felt it might lift her off the ground. "Yes," she said, smiling through her tears. "Yes to the pendant, yes to dinner, yes to exploring whatever this is between us." Connor's face lit with happiness as he removed the pendant from its box and stepped behind her to fasten it around her neck. His fingers were warm against her skin, and when he had secured the clasp, he placed a gentle kiss on her shoulder before turning her to face him again. "I should warn you," he said softly, "I have a feeling this particular exploration might lead somewhere quite serious. I don't fall easily, Maya, but with you it happened almost instantly." "For me too," she admitted, "though I tried very hard to deny it, especially when I thought you were planning to propose to someone else." Connor laughed, drawing her closer. "I'm sorry for the deception. Does it help to know that every word I said about how I felt was absolutely true? I just let you assume I was talking about someone else." "It helps," Maya conceded, sliding her arms around his neck. "But you might need to make it up to me anyway." "I intend to," Connor murmured, lowering his head until his lips were just a breath away from hers. "Starting right now." Their first kiss was everything Maya had secretly imagined, and more tender yet passionate, a promise of deeper connection to come. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, the sound of applause drifted down from the terrace above. Looking up, Maya saw their audience gathered at the railing, Sophia and Daniel front and center, beaming with approval, surrounded by friends and family who had been in on the elaborate plan. "I hope you don't mind an audience," Connor said, his arm securely around her waist. "They've all been quite invested in this outcome. Sophia threatened bodily harm if I messed it up." Maya laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I suppose we should go back and join them." "In a moment," Connor replied, pulling her close again. "First, I think we need another kiss to seal the deal. After all, I went to a lot of effort to create this particular memorable moment." "Far be it from me to waste such careful planning," Maya agreed, her heart full of joy as she lifted her face to his once more. 1 year later, Maya stood in the same garden pavilion, but this time in a simple white gown adorned with peonies, her mother's pearls around her neck alongside the diamond peony pendant that rarely left her throat. Sophia, as her maid of honor adjusted the small train while Maya's assistant Emma made final touches to her bouquet. "Ready?" Sophia asked, her eyes bright with happiness for her brother and the woman who had become her dear friend. Maya nodded, her heart full as she prepared to walk the path now lined with hundreds of peonies rather than candles, to where Connor waited beneath an arch of flowers at the edge of the terrace. 60 of their closest friends and family were seated in white chairs, the magnificent view of Portland serving as a backdrop to their ceremony. "More than ready," Maya replied, thinking of the journey that had brought them here from that first meeting over Sophia's engagement brunch plans to tonight, when they would begin their life together as husband and wife. As the string quartet began to play the same melody that had accompanied Connor's elaborate non-proposal a year earlier, Maya stepped onto the path. At the far end stood Connor, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his blue eyes fixed on her with such love that it took her breath away. This, Maya thought as she moved toward her future, was truly the most memorable moment of all, not because of perfect planning or beautiful details, but because it marked the beginning of a life with the man who had orchestrated the most romantic deception she could imagine, all to win her heart. And as she reached Connor and placed her hand in his, Maya knew with absolute certainty that the real adventure was just beginning.